What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show, powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler. Legs, I am always excited to do this show. I love doing it. But there are some days I'm a little more excited to do it, and today is one of them.
Well, you know what it feels like, Adam? I agree with you, first of all. What it feels like is the day after you've watched a couple of playoff games. And I know that they don't have the same significance, but the difference is they're meaningful games and there's only two of them. And so that's why this is such a great day, right? Because normally, we're looking at the slate of games. We're lucky to find a couple that really intrigue us with both teams being interesting. And then there's a slate of like 10 games a lot of times, and then you're sifting through it the next morning trying to figure out where should we go. This is great because, they condensed it down for us. They are not playoff games, but they do carry weight, and it's obvious the way that these teams played last night and the way that they conducted themselves a year ago, the entire league. This does matter, and they played that way last night. These were incredibly compelling games for different reasons. One was a great game. One, not so much. One of the teams was great. The other wasn't. But regardless, it's because it feels like the day after you watch two playoff games, and those are always like the most interesting content for sure.
They really were, man. Both of the games I thought were interesting. Even though the Thunder-Mavs game was a bit of a blowout, it was still very interesting. And what's a blowout these days? A 10-point lead goes away in no time. So I actually thought it was a competitive 18-point game or whatever it ended up being. And we're going to start there. We're going to talk about both games in equal measure because they both were very interesting to me. But we're going to start with Thunder-Mavs. They get the win 118-104. Really, there were two big runs for the Thunder in this game, and I think they both mirrored each other in an important way. And that's part of what stood out to me was just how disruptive the Oklahoma City Thunder are defensively. We've seen it all year. They get 12 steals, 24 deflections, and they just controlled the tempo, the personality of the game. They just had everything at their own pace and their own, they dictated it all. That's what stood out to me. But what's the top line thing that stood out to you in this one?
This was Oklahoma City basically pounding the gavel that they are clearly the best team in the Western Conference right now.
Ooh, okay.
It's clear to me. And the reason is because that was a mauling defensively, what you watched out of that team last night. And I've been lucky enough to see them in person this year and call a game and was unbelievably impressed with their team speed, their switchability, their length, their athleticism, their commitment to that end of the floor. And that, by the way, was before Hartenstein. And now he gives them another element defensively. You don't have Chet Holmgren, so you haven't even seen him at full strength or some of the different wrinkles they can throw at teams by playing multiple bigs and what that's going to look like. I'm just talking about their commitment to each other in making sure you flood driving lanes and then the commitment that they have to close out to the three-point line. There's no one in the league right now that does it like Oklahoma City. And remember what you and I said yesterday before the game, previewing the game, and you said, what was the most interesting thing? And I said, the fact that Oklahoma City has the type of defender in terms of a physical profile that can challenge Luka Doncic to the greatest extent because he's not fazed by length and quickness. Long guys don't mean anything to him because he just beats them up physically and then shoots a lean back and gets away from the length. Quick guys don't bother him because he'll just ride, he'll put them on his back and carry them like a backpack to the rim. They don't bother him, stuff like that. You're not going to phase him with that. Strength, physical brawn, combined with enough lateral quickness, those are the kind of guys that can challenge him and make his night rough. And now Lou Dort, you saw it last night, man. His effort level on Luka Doncic and the amount of help he would get when Luka did get any type of space. They took him out of the game in the first half. he tried to muster a little something in the second half, but none of it felt fluid. And they basically took what it was, I consider an unstoppable offensive player, and they shut him down. And so for me, that is the takeaway from the game. Oklahoma City's defense has now separated them from the rest of the Western Conference.
Yeah, their defense is insane. And by the way, we talked about the Mavs yesterday. We previewed this matchup, and you mentioned Dort. And we had some people, leave comments saying Dort doesn't bother him. Look at the numbers, this or that. Here we are 24 hours later, clearly bothers him. And I 100% agree with you. The one thing, and Luka can score on anybody. Dort did a great job. Luka had a rough game last night. Doesn't mean he'll shut him down to that degree every single night. I think we're going to talk about Luka in this game because I have some criticisms for him and how he approached it. But nonetheless, I 100% agree with you that it's physicality. And honestly, it's physicality with most of your dominant players because you want to see how much you can get away with. Dort gets away with a lot because he sets the tone there, and you have to kind of give it back to him. And I just thought that Luka in key moments did not go to the hole in ways that he was supposed to. I want to couch that for a second because there's a specific lineup where I thought that was the case. But the defensive deflections, and I want to start actually with what you're talking about. Oklahoma City walls off the paint. And that usually means you're giving up the three-point shot. But the speed with which they close out and rotate on the backside is unbelievable. It's playoff caliber, the intensity, and they have all these guys that check into the game and just want to do that. And to me, it's why they're so good. There weren't open shots inside or outside for the Mavs in this game for 48 minutes.
Completely agree with you. And you saw their desperation on that end of the floor immediately. And look, this was a pretty good game for a half, and it really got away for them in the third quarter from Dallas. But Oklahoma City's desperation on that end of the floor, it stands out. And it's not just Dort. And by the way, one of the reasons that Dort is a guy that I think no one's, like you said, to your point, no one's shutting Luka Doncic down. And there's going to be games that he'll match up with Lou Dort in the future going forward where he'll have his night, man, and he'll put up big numbers because he's that good offensively. But one of the reasons that Lou Dort is allowed to guard him a certain way is because Luka is giving just as much physically when he has the ball. And so they're allowing Dort to fight back on that because some people I know get frustrated. They think Lou Dort, he's got his hands all over him and he's fouling him too much. The reason that they officiate the game that way when those two guys play is because Luka Doncic is initiating so much contact throughout the game with his shoulders, his hips, his elbows, everything with his off arm when he's handling the basketball is geared toward knocking you back on your heels. Lou Dort is strong enough to be able to hold his ground better, and it just makes it harder for Luka to operate. And it wasn't just Dort, by the way. I thought when they had opportunities, they got switches. Casey Wallace did a great job. Wiggins did a great job guarding him. But the main thing is they have a mindset. And I talked to their coach, Daigneault, about this before I've had two of their games. Before the Lakers game I called, we talked about this exact concept, which is basically their entire mantra is no one gets left out on an island. Everything is going to be done collectively defensively. You never see guys pointing the finger on a blown coverage or a guy gets an easy shot. It's the five of us together collectively have a responsibility to each other on this possession. And we're going to do it for 48 minutes for every possession. And it's incredible to watch the commitment. And look, by the way, Adam, none of that is going to matter as much if you don't have a superstar offensive player, which I've watched Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I don't know how many times in his career. I'm a huge fan, love his efficiency. Last night was one of the best offensive displays he's put on, in my opinion. He was unguardable last night. And so the defense is great, but if you don't have that on the other end, it's not going to matter as much because you're going to lose some ugly games. Instead, they had it on both ends of the floor last night, just a completely dominant performance.
How much of it is the three-point shot? He goes 5 of 9, and a lot of the shots that are most memorable when you think back to that game were Shai threes that were just killer. And it wasn't like catch and shoot threes. It was he has his guy in ISO, he makes a move, gets to a step back, James Harden-esque, and hits the three. And he's had that in stretches, but I just feel like he's getting better and better at that one, and it extends what he's capable of doing because you just can't guard his height with that step back and the fear that he'll step back and go forward. There's just nothing you can do about it. And when he's hitting those, it just feels inevitable. And 3 or 4 of those threes were haymakers. The game's at 12 points and it extends to 15. They just feel so much worse. So how much of it is the 3-point shot for Shai?
a lot of it is his willingness to now take that when there's space. You look at it, the numbers, it's really pretty stark. I mean, he's averaged 6.5 3-point attempts a game this year. The last 2 years, he's averaged 3.5 and 2.5 in those 2 seasons. I mean, you're talking about literally almost doubling or more than doubling from 2 years ago, his 3-point attempts. That is a ton for a guy that is a master mid-range player. I mean, that's not an easy thing to accept. And I saw it. He took 9 in a preseason game, I believe, and it kind of jumped off the page at me. And I was thinking, maybe it's just preseason. He doesn't feel like, going in there and like exerting too much energy, so he's just going to take a bunch of jumpers. He's pretty much maintained it throughout the year. He's going to take it when it's there. And so now, okay, what does that mean? Well, that means, number one, where he's going to have to be guarded from the initial defender is different. You've got to press up now 26, 27 feet, because if you go under, he'll stop and shoot it. So the threat is there. But then what also it does to the big guarding the screener on those ball screens. I mean, the big guarding that now, that guy's got to be out extended to an area that he's not comfortable to guard a guy that's this shifty off the dribble. Nobody stops faster off the dribble and gets into their mid-range pull-up. So when you combine all of that with this threat level now of, hey, man, I got to be up on my toes a little bit. I got to be extended a little bit more with a guy that is this creative with his handle, with his start-stop ability, with that herky-jerky motion. That's what you get. I mean, he was incredible last night. You look at a game where you got 2 guys that are clearly MVP candidates in this league. They're both going to finish in the top 5 in voting, most likely. Yeah. And yet, look at the difference that Shea, the show he put on last night. And look, it's not him versus Luka. It's not what it is, but it just goes to show you Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is at the top of the whiteboard in Dallas's locker room, and they couldn't do anything with that guy. Luka is at the top of the whiteboard in Oklahoma City's, and at least for a night, there was a way to be able to figure out a way to make him less efficient when he's been playing incredible basketball since he came back from the injury. So, it's clearly not his best night, and he's got a lot of confidence. He's not going to sweat this too much. But I thought Shai Gilgeous-Alexander just took the stage, took the moment, and really just, if there's ever a guy that rang a bell and said, look who I am and where my place is in this league, it was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander last night.
He was phenomenal, man. I mean, I don't even know what else to say, because you just kind of count on big production from him, and that was probably a 90th percentile game. He was just absolutely dominant and had all the big shots. But where I actually think this game is most interesting, and I'm curious if you agree, Hartenstein, I thought was great last night. It gives him another size guy. He keeps the ball moving, but he lost his minutes. What the Thunder won was Kenrich Williams at center. They didn't have Chet Holmgren. They didn't have a backup center, so they went ultra small. Kenrich Williams is skinnier than me, at like my same height, 6'5", and maybe 200 pounds. He's a skinnier guy. And they put him at center, and they got faster. And not only do they get faster, the Mavs have to, if you're going to go small, you have to win the offensive glass. You're going to have to get to the paint and draw some fouls. And they were able to do neither. In fact, the very first play in the second quarter or first quarter, when he checked in, offensive rebound, 2 offensive rebounds in a row, resulting in a 3-pointer. And I looked at that and I go, the Thunder got away for 17 minutes last night. We're a +7 when the Thunder's tallest guy was 6'5". And I wonder if that is bad Mavs process. I think a little bit missing PJ Washington. PJ Washington's good at attacking some of the undersized guys, and I think would have made a difference just having somebody to post to. But you're not going to post Gafford. You're not going to post Lively. So you just need to win the boards and win the size game. And they did not. They got killed in the size game against that small ball lineup. And to me, that's why that game went the way it went.
Yeah, that's a great observation on your part. And Williams, by the way, was a +17 in 17 minutes for the game.
Dominated.
Yeah, I mean, and so this is one of the things I love about Oklahoma City. There are a variety of lineups they can play. And offensively, they just go, everything's built around Jalen Williams, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, do your thing, high ball screen and ISOs. That's kind of how they play, break you down, spread you out with threes, one big run into the rim. Like it's pretty much every possession. It's kind of the same thing. Defensively, they can throw a lot of different looks at you and how they want to play now. And they haven't even had their full complement of tools yet. And Daigneault's one of the smartest guys in the league. So I can't imagine, what's already going through his head and all this stuff and the film work he's doing right now. And he's thinking about the ways that he can utilize Shed Holmgren, Hartenstein when they come back or play one of them. Or, hey, if you need to on a certain night, if it requires you to just go small, they have a pretty darn good small lineup too. And a lot of it's because they've got incredible defenders at their guard positions. You've got Shea, you've got Caruso you can throw out there. You've got Jalen Williams. I mean, you've got three guys in that 6'6" and under range that are three of the better perimeter defenders in this league.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, Wiggins and Wallace and the other Williams, like you got them all. So they've got a stable of depth, and they haven't even had all their depth. And that's what makes this even more impressive, that they're doing this right now when they haven't had the team they envisioned after they acquired Isaiah Hartenstein.
And this is where I have a criticism for Luka, because again, if you have PJ Washington, I think that those minutes you're probably posting him up a little bit. You're really putting pressure on the defense in that way. But Luka's on the court. He's 6'8", 6'9", enormous. He's got a 40-pound weight advantage over all the guys. And yes, I think the Thunder disrupted him in their base lineups with Biggs and Dort. But in those moments, it's like, oh, there's nobody that can stop you if you put your head down and go to the rim. And sometimes you just have to be like, in those moments, just draw fouls, go to the rim, get inside, give yourself chances at offensive rebounds. And I thought in all of this, I think Kenrich Williams was out there for 3 stints. And in all of them that Luka was on the court, step backs, side steps, running floaters. And I'm thinking that's where I think Luka has to see in this specific matchup. You have to be able to punish that one. Because, again, you're not posting up, and if you're not grabbing offensive rebounds, just go to the paint. And he didn't. I thought he settled in those minutes where that was where he could have turned the dial up.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, look, he was just not on his game, and I kind of expected much more out of him, even though I talked about the matchup with Dort, knowing that it's going to be a physical game. You still expect Luka. We've talked about this many times. When you're on that level, like you find a way to get to your number. One way or another. It might be a rough shooting night and you get to the line 15 times, but you're going to get to your number and you're going to have your stamp on the game. Luka never put his stamp on the game. He tried to muster something there in the third quarter and it got away from them because they could not stop OKC. That's what it came down to. I mean, Dallas at one point started finding more of a rhythm offensively in the second half, where they thought, okay, they got it to single digits. Maybe they're going to make a run here. Problem is they couldn't guard Oklahoma City. Every possession, Oklahoma City needed to have a separation basket. They got the separation basket. They got that bucket to stall momentum. And, what more can you say, man? It was unbelievably impressive. That's all I can tell you. Like I'm sitting there watching them going, it is going to be very tough. And look, Boston is going to be the gold standard in this league, and they should be. They won a championship. They brought everybody back.
Agreed.
They are the team that you look at, right? That's the measuring stick. Regardless of Cleveland's record right now in the East, regardless of any of these other storylines, they are the measuring stick. And you take a look at Oklahoma City last night and you go, man, okay, right now, more than any team in the NBA, that is the team, when fully healthy, is going to be equipped to be able to go toe-to-toe with the Celtics.
I 100% agree. And another part of this that we're talking about with Luka, and this is an evolution of even his game, as great as he is. LeBron is great at this. I think Jokic is great at this. Players like Chris Paul are great at this. You learn the rhythm of a rotation and you go, okay, this lineup's out there. I've got to do this. This lineup's out there. I got to do something different. And I thought when you're mentioning he got aggressive in the third, it was against the tough defensive lineup. And that led into the weaker defensive lineup where it was like, I think if he saw the rhythm of that first half, he says, okay, they're going to bring in this small lineup. And then when that happens, that's where I turn it on and get super aggressive. But to OKC's credit, one of the things that makes them tough for a superstar player like a Luka is they can throw 8 different looks at you over the course of one quarter. They can throw Dort on you, and that's one look, and we got all these helpers, and we have a big down below. They can throw Case and Wallace and Caruso on you. They can trap. They just never let him get the same look, and I think that's part of what makes them so good and will make them so good in the playoffs is they have 5 or 6 different micro adjustments they can make within possession by possession, so you're constantly having to reread the court and reread the flow of the game. That's part of why I find him so impressive.
Yeah, one of the things that you noticed about Luka last night, Luka, a good majority of his game is going to be built around getting to those areas of the floor, like below, like the third hash on the lane. he likes to get below that. He's got a lot of up and unders he'll get you into. He likes to go down there and then reverse pivot away to shoot a 12 to 15 foot lean back. He couldn't get to that area of the floor. It felt like everything that he did was going to be forced outside 18 feet. Like that's as far as he was going to be allowed to go. And part of it is because the good job at the initial point of attack, not getting any blow-bys, because he can do that. He's shifty enough with a crossover, and then he's so strong in his first step. He can get some blow-bys from the three-point line. He didn't get that because the initial coverage was good. But then it's what Oklahoma City does with those gaps. They don't allow him to step through those gaps when the help guy comes. Most teams will get there like sort of halfway, coming off the corner, coming off the wing. And Luka's just going to get right through that every time because he's got these wide shoulders and he's so strong and he knows how to throw his forearms into you to get calls. Oklahoma City is better than any team right now at narrowing that gap probably by half. And now it just doesn't look the same to a ball handler. It doesn't look like that. Looks like an iffy thing. That looks like it could be an offensive foul if I take one more dribble. So you end up picking it up before you want to. But oddly enough, they don't get burned on the kick out three very often. Now in this league, teams are taking 40 of those a night. Yeah, you're going to give up some of those. But watch just the number of times that Oklahoma City is getting in the air on that three-point shot and giving it a legitimate, honest contest compared to most teams in this league. And that's what this look that they were giving Luka last night. And look, now it's up to Dallas when they do get a full strength. They play them 2 times, I believe, in January within like a week or something. And then they're done for the year. They're done for the year. They won't play again until they would have to see each other potentially in the playoffs. But hopefully next time, Dallas is a full strength, and let's see what adjustments they make to give Luka a little bit more space in whatever they run, or make them pay for not giving Luka space. But Dallas didn't really do either one of those things last night.
Well, the other thing is, you look at that plus 17 with Kenrich Williams there at center. Are they going to go to that lineup in the playoffs if Chet Holmgren's back? Probably not. I think you're probably splitting up Hartenstein and Chet, playing them together some. So part of me wonders, last night's game, as interesting as it was, and it had stakes, the NBA Cup, the trip to Vegas, it had stakes, but I almost feel like this game in some ways, there's some stuff to take in, but I don't know that they're going to go to that small ball lineup in a postseason. I don't know if we'll see it even in January when they meet up again. But it was interesting at least to get a look at. My last note on OKC, I think they are the best program in the NBA. And I wonder if going forward with this new restrictions around the salary cap and different things, having a program is going to be so important because they can roll guys out there like rookie AJ Mitchell and know what they're doing. I asked Daigneault this actually when he came to Denver. I said, do you have to change your defensive principles when you're facing such a unique player like Nikola Jokic? And he says, we build our principles into our system so that they don't change matchup to matchup. It's just you emphasize a different part of your principles so there isn't big changes. And I just thought it was brilliant because they have 9 guys they can roll out there who all execute a similar game plan. And it's just like they know who they are. They've built this program. They know their identity, and every player on that roster knows what their role is. And I think that's what stands out to me when I watch them play is they just are a machine.
One of the things I think I still believe, they were the number 1 seed in the West a year ago, and they got bounced in the second round, and now here they are again. I think very likely to end up the number 1 seed in the West again. Maybe even, who knows? But when it's all said and done, might have the best record in the NBA when it's all said and done. That's possible, and yet I do not think Daigneault gets enough credit. And one of the things that stands out to me, one of the things that he is really focused on. It's a lot more than schematics with this team. He is making guys accountable for their basketball IQ. And it's a huge part of what they're doing. And it's why you see the product you have. Now, look, I'll say this. It does help. And this isn't all, praise for the organization. A little bit of this is luck, Adam, in this regard.
Sure.
You don't really know guys until you get them in-house. So you can do all your background and research and all this stuff, and you can vet as much as you want going into the draft or a free agency acquisition, and you think you're getting guys with high character. Bottom line is you don't know until they're in your building. And a lot of times with guys on this team, it's even far greater than they imagined. The character, the integrity, the unselfishness, the professionalism, the maturity. So they've got a group of guys that exude that character. And now Daigneault is making them accountable to understand the game, how to be smarter players, how to make us hard to play against, not just because we've got talent or we play hard or we've got athletes, but because we are going to play every angle. We're going to make sure we've got every single rotation and coverage on the weak side down pat because we saw it happening before it happened. And it's because he's incredibly intelligent. If you sit down and talk to the guy for 10 minutes, I made a joke after he left the room before when we interviewed him before the game. Like, I bet this guy sits home and just gets every question right on Jeopardy. He just looks like one of those guys. He's just so incredibly cerebral. But yet when he's talking, he's not like talking in a way that's condescending where he's using terminology that people would understand. He's bare bones in how he's explaining. He is paying attention to details that are so important in cleaning up and squeezing that last 10 or 15% out of a group. And so I want to give this guy all the credit in the world. He's one of the smartest guys in the league. And a lot of why they play the way that they do is absolutely his imprint on what he is seeing, communicating to them, and then having guys that are smart enough and determined enough and professional enough to go out there and try to make that happen, and whatever his vision is for great basketball. So I just want to give him a lot of love right now because that's to your point, the best program. A lot of that has to do with him.
People might have just glossed over what you just said, but to me, it's so important about a coach. He is clear. He has a clear mind. He sees things very clearly. So when you ask him a complex question, he's able to answer it so clearly. And when I say that they have an identity that everyone on the team understands, I think it's because he communicates that identity to them very clearly day after day after day. So there's no confusion about what's going on. Everybody knows. And to give you an example, there's one play that stood out to me, and I wonder if you remember this play. Isaiah Joe hit back-to-back threes to end the third quarter, backbreaker. And the second one, a little bit of luck. I think he banked it in, kind of a prayer shot. But the one right before it with about 35 seconds left, the Mavs are in a zone. And the Thunder just automatically come out and understand, okay, how do we attack this? And you see Lively, who's kind of shouting out. The broadcast last night was turning the volume up on the court, and I kind of liked it because you could hear the players and coaches talking a lot. And he's calling out soft, 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 meaning we're not going to switch this. There's some cutters going through, but we're not cutting. We're not switching. They run the corner guy out, so defensively the corner guy follows him. They cut Caruso through to that corner, so Lively thinks he has to track him along. And then they get Isaiah Joe setting a go screen, basically, as they always do, and get him on the wing. It was just such perfectly timed action. They knew exactly how they needed to attack the zone, and they get a wide open Isaiah Joe 3 on the right wing. And you see Dallas in that moment just be a half step behind and like, dang, man, we were locked in, we were set, we had everything, but they just knew exactly how to execute their game plan.
I like that you brought that up. I remember that play vividly because I watched it like 3 times back because I was trying to see exactly how he got that open. Started in the left wing and kind of ran a diagonal cut up through the lane to the right wing. And because they were in his zone and there was a miscommunication, he ended up just sprinting up there, turning, feet set, ball gets swung, he's wide open, knocks it down. And by the way, he made 3 threes in the game. All of them felt like bombs. It was like, some guys, he didn't have a great shooting night and he only had 3 threes. He's capable of having bigger nights than that, but they all felt so big. And a lot of it is just the reaction. That place was juiced last night, by the way, man. That's one of the best environments in the league. And one thing I like about that environment as well for them is they don't turn on them. Like, you're not going to see them get down 16-4 and call timeout and get booed going to the huddle. Like those fans, they stay in it. They stay with them the whole time. There was electricity there last night. Yeah, I think even by their standard, because last year they had such a great year, I think everybody there can sense something even more special about this group. Right? And they haven't even seen them at full strength yet. But there's just something about them right now, the way they're vibing, gelling, and it's exciting, man. So look, we're certainly praising them a lot today. People, tuning into this may think it's the Oklahoma City bandwagon show. It's not, man. We're calling out a great performance last night, and we cover Dallas a lot on this show. We praise them a lot, praise Luka a lot.
They're second best team in the West, in my opinion. Maybe first.
They got their ass kicked last night. That's all there is to it. They got their ass kicked in the second half of that game, and now they've got to have a response to that down the road.
Two notes real quick on Dallas. This first one's kind of a small one. I was very impressed with Omax last night. I thought he was good. I haven't seen a lot of him. He's playing a little bit more. He had some big buckets, 2 threes, and they both were very timely. And I just thought, when they drafted him, you think a Jeremy Grant type, he's got this great length. He has something that could be a non-zero offense. And I saw it last night. Like, you didn't see a whole lot of him, last year or whatever, but you see him, and I was impressed with what I saw from Omax.
I agree with that, and so I'll give a shout-out to the guy that I liked last night that I thought kind of handled the whole situation very well was Naji Marshall. And, he continues to play well. And, I look at him, and, they basically made a call there with, the Derrick Jones spot. Derrick Jones could do some things athletically, defensively that nobody can really do. And then he's got that amazing lob threat ability. But overall, the ability to put it down a little bit and get the spots and make shots, Naji Marshall impressed me last night because you get basically quiet games out of Luka and Kyrie. And it's hard to beat a team as good as Oklahoma City if you get quiet nights out of both stars. But Naji Marshall as that next guy. Clay played pretty well also. But I thought Naji Marshall's ability to play off the dribble against a defense that good and still get the spots, that impressed me last night.
And then lastly, I'm curious because we haven't talked about Kyrie Irving probably enough because he's having such a phenomenal year. And when they made a run in the fourth, the game was like 17 points, and they make a run in the fourth that made you think, okay, they're back into it. I think they cut it to 8 or something like that. And it was largely behind Kyrie running the show, in like a staggered lineup. And one of my takes, and I'm curious what you think of this because you could take this out of context. Kyrie's good enough to have the keys to the team more often than he does. And I think he's a phenomenal team player over the last 2 years. But last night, I remember thinking, Luka's struggling for whatever reason. They're targeting him. I just wonder if they could turn that dial to Kyrie a little bit more than they do. After all, how many games did they win in a row when he was the only star on the team? So last night, I remember thinking, I wonder what it would look like if Kyrie took this thing home, not Luka.
I agree. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen enough. And I do agree with you that there just should be, because you go back to when Kyrie played alongside LeBron, and it's a similar situation in that there's a very specific lane you're in next to that guy. And Luka's similar in regard, he's a gravitational force for the whole universe. Everything associated with the organization is in front of him. Like he's got all the questions. He's the guy figuring everything out, possession after possession after possession. So that other lane is just like, give me the ball when I do get it, and I can just go and play and ball. I don't have to lead anybody. I don't have to worry about anything. I'm just going to go ball and be me. And he thrived. But I felt like every game when he was with LeBron in Cleveland, they gave Kyrie a 6-minute stretch, both halves, where it was completely his show. Even if LeBron was on the floor, just go. It's your show. You're going to be the initiator. You're going to be the first guy. You're the focal point. I don't think they're going to ever get to that with both of those guys on the floor where Luka and I've seen it games this year. At the Golden State game comes to mind, that incredible game that they played when Clay went back out there to the Bay Area. That was an incredible game, one of the best games I've watched all year. Kyrie was incredible in that game. And yet here it was when it came time, it was going to be all Luka, Luka, Luka the whole way. And I think you're right. If there was a better blend, I think they would have a better chance. You know what it reminds me of? Kind of reminds me of, and I like quoting movies, Talladega Nights. That's what it's like, okay? That's what it's like. Those guys are like shake and bake. And what it comes down to is Kyrie saying to Luka, like just like the movie, hey man, how about one time I finish first? Yeah. And then Luka's saying, oh, yeah, but then if you finish first, how am I going to finish first? Like that famous line from Will Ferrell, right? So it's like there's always going to be that part of Luka that thing's going to make that a little bit harder. Now look, I'm not going to criticize them too much because they have found a really good blend together.
They're good, man. They're good.
A lot of people didn't wonder that was going to ever happen when they first got together. They've come a long way together, but I agree with you. Kyrie is deserving, I think, of a little bit more opportunity every night, even when Luka's on the floor, to go be the primary driving force on X amount of possessions. And I think that's going to be a harder thing for Luka to give up.
When you said, who they remind you of, that would have not been in my top 100 guesses of where you're going with it. So there you go. Very versatile. The movie quotes, everything. Legs can do it all. All right, let's take a break. There was another great game last night. In fact, a better game, at least a closer game last night between the Bucks and the Magic that we got to break down. By the way, who was playing last night really well? Who's my guy? Kenrich Williams. He's a graduate of my guy's academy. Really, another guy. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, Bucks Magic. Let me first tell you guys about Game Time. Are you trying to get some tickets? Maybe you want to go to the NBA Cup and get some tickets. You're maybe a little weekend trip now to Las Vegas now that your team advanced last night. Well, hop on the Game Time app. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. They have all these great features, including the flash deals, zone deals, last-minute ticket prices, so you can show up to the arena without a ticket, then hop on the app 5 minutes before tip-off. You'll probably find the ticket prices dropping. But they also have my favorite feature, which is the all-in price feature, because so many of these apps have it so that you think you're buying a ticket for $100. You go to checkout, all of a sudden it's $190. There was $90 in taxes and fees and all this other stuff. You hit the all-in pricing button, and you'll know exactly the dollar and cent that you're going to be paying at checkout, so you don't get confused and have to start all over and sort through tickets again. It's an incredibly simple but very useful feature that not every app has. Game Time has it. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code ALLNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Holiday season's coming up. Maybe that's your idea. You want to take the family out to an NBA game. Again, create an account and redeem that code ALLNBA. Very important for you to remember, all NBA. Support the show. They see when we send people to them, so you want to do that, ALLNBA, and you get $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Also want to tell you guys about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. You can even bet on the NBA Cup. Legs told us yesterday, whoever won this game is going to win the NBA Cup. So if you take Legs' word as gospel, as I do, you can hop on right now and place a bet for the Thunder to win the NBA Cup this weekend, and you can circle back and super chat us on Monday when you've collected your earnings. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com/AllNBA to join today. Again, use our code. That's FanDuel.com/AllNBA. Must be 21 and older. Present in Colorado. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. And if you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-522-4700. All right, back here on the All-NBA Show, segment 2. We're going to move to the other game now, the Magic and the Bucks. If you're enjoying the show, hit that like button for us, leave a comment below, and make sure to subscribe. We do this 4 times a week. We are back tomorrow and Friday. You're never going to want to miss the show. So the Bucks take care of business against the Magic, but the Magic, down Franz Wagner, down Paolo Banchero, they still managed to fight and compete in this game. I never actually thought they were going to pull it out, which maybe takes some of the drama off. But the Bucks, I thought, played well. This was 2 teams that played incredibly hard, incredibly well, but the Bucks had more firepower down the stretch as Damian Lillard hit a couple of big baskets to seal this thing. What stood out to you?
Listen, yeah, the way the Bucks closed the game was pretty sensational. It's amazing that Orlando actually took the lead that late in the game, chance to win it. You're playing without your 2 best players, 2 best offensive players. Sneakily, Orlando's becoming one of my favorite teams in the league to watch. I just think they're incredibly tough. I think one of the things that stood out to me for them last night, this might have been, Suggs has had a very good year. This might have been his coming out party, man, as like the type of player that he actually is going to end up being. Because if he starts to shoot the deep shot off the dribble as comfortably as he was last night with everything else that he does, he's a very special player. And so that to me was what kind of jumped out to me. Like, man, this guy is doing this pretty easily. Like, this looks very comfortable to him being thrust to the forefront. Need a big night out of you. You don't have Wagner. You don't have Banchero. We need a big night out of you. You're our 3rd best guy. He's like a 15-point-a-game type of player, and he's able to dial it up to that extent. Very impressed by Jalen Suggs, but ultimately it was the way the Bucks handled the biggest possessions late, particularly the way Damian Lillard performed late in that game. He made every big play that had to be made to get the Bucks into the semifinals.
And I got to shout out my guy, Eric Name, who covers the Bucks for The Athletic, one of my favorite beat reporters, because he's always providing the news and stuff, you know, the quotes from after the game, which I really value, but he always has great insight into what's working for the team. And last night, Dame, after the game, talked about how this team only got through the adversity they faced early in the year because they did it together. They did it connected. There was nobody just trying to settle things. It was like, all right, how do we approach this? And then Giannis added to that, saying the clutch of this game, the last 2 minutes, Dame was the guy making shots. But if you go back and watch, it was the process of the entire team doing exactly what they wanted to do. And the last ISO on Wendell Carter with Dame, Khris Middleton, who I thought was good in this game for not scoring, for having, what did he end up with in this game? He had 0 points. But I still thought he was great in the game. He gets the ball as the ball handler, drags the defense away, almost distracts him before getting it back to Giannis to run that inverted pick and roll, which is what set up the switch. Because running that inverted pick and roll, they were switching, they were doing some stuff to cover for themselves behind it. But at the end, I thought Middleton did a good job of setting the table to distract the backside switches just long enough to be able to create what you wanted. And from there, Dame's going to cook Wendell Carter 9 times out of 10, and that's what he did.
Well, think about it. They go back down 3 inside of a minute to play. Orlando goes up 3, make 2 free throws. Wendell Carter makes 2 free throws. They got a 3-point lead. At that point, you're basically a stop away. Right there in that moment, that next possession, you're a stop away from most likely winning the game. And yet Lillard comes down, bangs the 3 to tie it. And then Anthony Black makes a free throw after that. And then Lillard has the lane open up, totally blown coverage on the part of the Magic. Lillard comes up the floor like a little bit of a brush screen, gets downhill, but Tadze is back under the rim. He's guarding Portis, who's in the corner, and Bitadze didn't know what to do. Lillard's coming right at him, so Bitadze's thinking, like, man, if I stop this, that's a kick-out 3. Portis had a great game, so he's going to, you're giving up a 3-pointer. So Bitadze sort of bluffed at him and ran back to Portis, and Lillard just went all the way to the rim in that situation for an uncontested shot right at the front of the rim. That's probably the most disappointing defensive possession of the night for the Magic. And then Suggs just needed 1 more 3 in him. He had 2 more opportunities and couldn't get one to go on a night when he was sensational offensively. But yeah, Lillard, listen, this is what he's been known for his entire career. The thing I liked about the Bucks in this game, that started to probably feel like a lot of pressure at some point. Like, you're down to this team, shorthanded as can be, missing their top 2 guys. You're at home, and now you're down 3 inside of a minute. Like, and even the bigger possessions, there were bigger possessions before that. Over the last 2 minutes of the game, there were big possessions, and the Bucks never really seemed to get flustered at all. And a lot of it was because Damian Lillard is used to those types of situations. He's used to getting what he wants, and he hits you as a dual threat, as a driver and as a deep jump shooter, and the Bucks were able to hold them off. But I came away from incredibly impressed with the Magic, and at the same time impressed with the Bucks' closing ability. And the fact that they really only had 3 guys offensively. I mean, that's really, they played the entire game with 3 guys scoring. Lillard, Antetokounmpo, and Portis was all they had. I think they took 25 shots combined, the rest of the team. Yeah. Nobody was really got unleashed. AJ Green hit a couple of big 3s in the fourth. He had a rough shooting night. He did make 2 big ones in the fourth quarter that really helped out. They were timely, but for the most part, it was a 3-man show the entire game. Yeah. And yet they were able to figure out a way to manage the big possessions better. And Milwaukee, which now is 2 years in a row, they're representing themselves well in this play-in.
That's right. Yeah, back to Vegas
in season. Yeah.
You know what, Legs? You made a lot of really good points there. But I still got to hit you with pillow talk, man. I got to hit you with the pillow talk. What? The first pillow talk. I got to hit you with one. You just pillow talked here. A soft take. Goga Bitadze had a tough decision. Damian Lillard driving to the basket, wide open layup, or Bobby Portis. You say, it was a tough decision. That was a horrible defensive play. He ran out at the corner on Bobby Portis while Damian Lillard gets a layup. That might have actually determined the game, and it was the worst defensive decision I've seen in a long time.
Listen, man, I've never in my entire 23-plus year career in broadcasting been accused of a soft take. So I can't believe I got hit, and I'm upset with James right now for even allowing this to happen. This segment's created for you. You give us one of those a week typically. All right. I maybe I wasn't, maybe part of it was because somehow, some way, Bitadze has become one of my top 10 favorite players.
I love him.
In the league. In fact, he hasn't been claimed. I'm going to claim him as one of my guys right now. Right here on the show. That's one of
There
my
it is.
guys. Going forward, Pataze's one of my guys.
I'm jealous of that one, man. I should have claimed him, man. I knew I should have claimed him.
Listen, you're right. You're right. Listen, you got to take away the surefire layup in that situation. I think I went a little soft on him because I'm so infatuated with his
Yeah,
game. He played
we
very
love
well
Clay.
last night again. In
Yeah.
fact, oh my God, how about the dunk he had on Giannis?
Oh,
There were some great dunks in this game, by the way. And then Giannis, of course, got him back later. But the dunk, and it was funny because Giannis turned and he just didn't have enough like time to be able to jump. So he kind of halved it. And then he ducked a little bit, and Bataze came in and dunked and like landed on his back. It was pretty nasty. And then Giannis, of course, got him back even better, really, on the other end several minutes later.
You don't want to get a dunk off with Giannis. That guy's almost always going to get you back. Here's what I like about the Bucks, though. Here's my big picture take, because they're 13-11. They started horribly. What was it, 2-8? So they've really been rolling since then, and they look good. It's not. I honestly think they're fine. They're set up, and they will likely throughout the course of the year continue to climb. But here's what I like about them. They have 9 guys. And when Middleton was out and they had a couple other guys, in and out of the lineup, you really felt their depth. And there were just moments that cost them the game when they would have to go to these compromised lineups and try to hold on, and they couldn't do it. But now they have 9 guys. And Middleton last night, 0 of 2, took 2 shots in 20 minutes, but he had 8 assists. And I thought the physicality and the length of Orlando is one of the most physical teams in the NBA, and they're always super long. Even without Franz and Paolo, they're still a big team. And I thought Middleton is just one of those veteran players, really tall. He wasn't bothered by the physicality or the length. And so he had these great passes. He had that great pass to Giannis for a dunk, kind of a give and go, where they trapped Middleton, just calm, cool, throws it over the top, and you get a wide open dunk. And the fact that they now don't go to lineups where I'm holding my breath, they have good and bad lineups, but there's never a point where I'm like, man, how are they going to survive these 5 minutes? They have 9 guys. And I think when injuries come throughout the course of the year, they're going to struggle. But when they have these 9 guys healthy, I actually look at it and go, that's a great team. That they just have the stuff you need to win games.
Yeah, look, I think that's a really good take. I also think one of the things that you get reminded of when you watch them, and particularly when you watch them in a meaningful game, which last night was, you still marvel at the desire of Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Oh,
yeah. The guy does not cheat anything. His intensity level, and he's just, what he's bringing to the table with that size, strength, how fast he can get from point A to point B, with that kind of size and power at the end of that and athletic ability, and he does it relentlessly the whole time. Like what he is capable of on a given night is like enough, even when like they're shorthanded or other guys don't play well. Like Giannis alone can put you in a position to win games that you shouldn't have a right to win because of how hard the guy plays and how badly he wants it. So I agree with you. Listen, Milwaukee had a very tough start to the year. Then they got hot against bad teams. And so this is, and I know Orlando's shorthanded, but with what was at stake and like the meaning behind the game and the way they had to play at the end of the game, this is a step forward for the Bucks. And they're letting you know and reminding you, who knows what Khris Middleton ultimately is going to be again. Like what level does he get to? We don't know. We're a long way from knowing that. And can he stay back? That's another hurdle for him. He's had a hard time with that. Who knows? We always say how important he is, but let's see exactly what we're talking about with Khris Middleton and the level he can get to. But the fact that they've got Giannis with what he does in all aspects of the game every night, as relentlessly as he does, and they've got this incredible offensive player in Lillard, like they got a shot. When you look at the East, they're going to be in the mix of that next group of teams outside Boston.
Yeah. The last guy I want to shout out, though, is AJ Green. And it's funny because Bobby Portis goes 9 of 11. I mean, he was great last night. There's no question about it. What he brought to the game was loud and important. But AJ Green last night, if you told me he was going to play the 3rd most minutes in a big game for the Bucks, and he only had 9 points, I'd be like, what are you talking about? 9 points. He breathes 3-point shooting. He was just phenomenal last night as a connector, as a defender. And he's such a quality player that almost feels like he's come out of nowhere, but he's just such a quality guy. That's more than just he's not Luke Kennard. He does like a lot of stuff in addition to shooting the ball that helps you win games. And I was just impressed with him last night. 33 minutes.
I like what you're saying here. One of the things that stood out to me was he didn't have a good shooting night. In fact, he uncorked 2 air balls on 3 that were decent looks 1-for-7 going into that stretch in the fourth quarter when he hit 2. And you can tell at no point did he have any semblance of self-doubt. Now, part of that is him, right? Innately, some guys are more confident than others. It's also, I think, a credit to the coaching staff that, you didn't see any reaction on the sideline or take him out when he's not shooting well. They're letting this guy play because he plays incredibly hard. He's basically taking Pat Connaughton's minutes now. They think that he's got more upside there because he competes enough defensively, and he's just more of a threat to get really hot from the three-point line and give them that spacer that they need. So I was impressed with the fact that he really, you go 1-for-7 and shoot 2 air balls on threes. There's a lot of guys that they're going to find ways to not be open in the last 5-6 minutes of the game. And he didn't even think about doing that. He let it fly. He continued to, and he ended up making 2 very important ones.
Real quickly on the Orlando Magic, I have to shout out Anthony Black. I thought he was unbelievable last night. I love his game. 17-6, 3-3, and 1. Did a little bit of everything. And the thing about Anthony Black that stands out to me, his offensive game, because he's a good defender, his offensive game, he has these talents. His confidence and his aggressiveness has really ramped up throughout the course of this year, even with the course compared to last year, but within the course of game 1 of this year to where he was last night. You mentioned Suggs playing like a superstar. I thought Anthony Black played like a running mate to a superstar. He played like a number 2 last night with how confident he was getting into the paint and just, probing and trying to make things happen. And it sounds simple, but confidence for a player like Suggs, I can believe it. He's been around for a while. He's a big piece of the team. Him elevating up, I can see it. Anthony Black is a guy that is still breaking into this league, and to have the confidence to ramp up to the level that he was playing last night with the aggressiveness and how much was on his shoulders, I just was really impressed. I thought he did a good job under the circumstances.
Continues to grow as a player. He's one of those, some guys are on the fast track where they get their feet wet for a certain period of time and then they kind of take off and you like okay, he's there already. For him, it's a little bit slower curve, but definitely I agree with you. He makes winning plays. He impressed me. There's only 2 things about the Magic last night that bothered me. Only 2 things. One is I thought Cole Anthony hurt them.
2 of 12.
He 2 for 12 in 15 minutes. I mean, he had one thing on his mind when he was on the floor. And I understand he's not really a traditional point guard. He's a guy that, can score and gets his own shot. I just thought his shot selection for a particular stretch of the game when he was on the floor in the second half was just really questionable. Like it was like they were snowballing against him because I think he was trying so hard to get into this game and, have his imprint on the game. And sometimes when you do that, you force it a little too much. It goes the opposite way for you. So I didn't think he played particularly well. Oh, by the way, in between the 2 things that bothered me, I also want to shout out Jett Howard played well in this game last night. I thought Jett Howard gave them really good minutes. In 13 minutes, 10 points. He just looked very comfortable, made a couple of big shots for them at a time when it was kind of, going back and forth. But the other thing that bothered me, Mo Wagner played really well. He was 6 for 6, had a really good game. He just has got to stop with this. I think 3 or 4 times in the game, he had something to say to a teammate after they got scored on. And it's just come on, man. It's a couple of them were maybe, if I recall, it was he was guarding a big guy, but he had to help. And then maybe he didn't get help on his man then on a box out or a slash or whatever it may be. And it was just now the ball is being inbounded and he's in the backcourt, giving somebody, the business and it's on his own team. And it's come on, man, just play. So those are the only 2 things that bothered me from the Magic last night. But this team is, and it's how weird is it to have your 2 best players have the same very, an injury that very few guys go through in the course of a year, torn oblique. Both of your best players have torn obliques. And so we don't know when we're going to see Banchero. And now they're saying they're going to evaluate Wagner in a matter of weeks. I don't know when we're going to see both of them look like they're at full strength again. I'm guessing it could be sometime after the All-Star break, maybe even, or early February, if that. So we might have to really wait. Now, the question is going to be, can they keep their head above water? Do they have enough offense in the meantime? Or is Banchero going to be coming back sooner than later? And now, okay, you're good. Now we just have to wait for Wagner. But what's exciting about this team, Adam, is that you're going to see another really high quality team thrust into the mix in the Eastern Conference over the last couple months of the regular season, because we're not going to see them at full strength very much at all until you get to that point. But they have proven They play hard enough defensively. They're good enough defensively, and they've got top-end offensive talent that is going to allow them to hang in games. So I'm excited for what we're going to get out of Orlando as we go into that last 2 months heading into the playoffs.
They are 3 games up of the play-in right now, which feels so unfair. I mean, we're only 23 games into the season, but it feels like they're higher up than that. But unfortunately, as you mentioned, the Knicks have got it together. The Bucks have got it together. There's some teams now that have climbed over this last little bit and closed the gap. So sadly, it is going to be a tough month ahead, I think, for them, despite the effort they gave last night. And by the way, I texted you and producer James last night with about 2 minutes to go in the game. And I said, I think Jalen Suggs is the number 1 winning player in the NBA, something like that. And he proceeded to miss his last 2 shots. So I might have jinxed it for the Magic fans, but he does. Winning players, if I were to make like the Mount Rushmore currently of winning players, for me, Caruso, Suggs, Derek White, I don't know who the 4th guy would be, but those 3 guys would be on my list of guys that make the most winning players per 36 minutes. Do you have somebody you would add to the list?
That's a good list you're putting together right there. And one thing I want to say about Suggs last night, as great as he played offensively, I think he probably would like to have maybe both of those threes back at the end of the game, or at least the first one, because even the one they ran on the sideline out of bounds play when he came off and shot that 3, like there's 10 seconds left. I like down 3. Like I like that situation with 10 seconds. Very rarely are you going to run direct action off of a screen to get a catch and shoot 3. It's going to be a tough shot. And that was a lean back 3. I like the secondary action with 10 seconds to go is when you get the 3.
You're right.
Whatever that may be. A flare screen off dribble penetration on the weak side, one skip past, somebody else shoots it, whatever. I mean, so you'd probably like to have that one back too, but that was a design play to get him a shot, and he had a great night, and they went to him the hot hand, and he missed it. But there was the other one, the one-on-one, when he milked the clock all the way down and went against Lillard.
Like he's Tracy McGrady or something.
He rose up from like 26 with 5 seconds left on the shot. I didn't like that possession. And you could tell by his reaction, I think he probably wishes he could do that one all over again. But I love that list of guys. Nothing
Josh Hart.
I agree with you.
I think Josh Hart would round out the Mount Rushmore of current, winning players, guys, because all those guys give you like 5 or 6 extra possessions a game just from sheer hustle. All right, we have a new segment we're going to bust out every week now, where we give shout outs to players that we think deserve a shout out. This segment is powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook app. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. I tasked you with giving some shout outs from the last week or so. Who is getting a shout out from you this week, Legs?
I'm going to give my shout out to a team, a player from a team that for me is one of the least interesting teams to watch on a nightly basis. Okay. So I'm going to preface it by saying that. And that's why I don't give this team a lot of talk. And they're a good team. It's a great organization. It's the Heat. And I'm going to give my shout out to Tyler Herro.
Hey, I did not expect this one. All right.
Listen, man, you have to do it. The guys had 3 30-point games in the last 10 days. He's averaging 26 points a game in December. He's he's not a guy that, because you're not necessarily enthralled, and the Heat don't end up in a lot of these discussions, and they're having like a mediocre year. They're basically a 500 team for the most part. There've been years they get a lot of talk because you think they have a legitimate chance to contend. That's not what this team is, so they don't get a lot of play. But I've watched 2 of their games in the last couple of weeks, and Tyler Herro has really impressed me, man. He's on a heater right now. Like, he's really feeling it offensively, and probably maybe one of the best stretches he's had as a pro is happening right now. So I'll give my shout out to Tyler Herro.
I like it, man. Tyler Herro is not where I thought you would go, but he definitely deserves it. And the Miami Heat, we talked about teams getting it together. They're also getting it together, 12-10. So they're back there in that 5 seed range. And as we mentioned, man, it's funny. All the usual suspects who we expected to be at the top 6 are exactly who we expected, minus Philadelphia. They're the one team that hasn't caught up yet. Cavs, Celtics, Magic, Knicks, Heat, Bucks. That was the list of teams we kind of thought would be there, and those are the teams that are there right now. All right, we have a couple super chats before we get out of here. What do we got, James? Number 1, Henry Diesel says, Dallas Fabes for Herb Jones thoughts. Herb Jones, we talked yesterday about the Mavs maybe going after Jimmy Butler. Neither of us like that at all. Herb Jones is an interesting one because he's a phenomenal player. You'd still have to give up a lot to get Herb Jones because he's too good for you just to try to get. Would it make sense for them to pay the price it would take for Herb Jones to add him to the roster?
That's a tantalizing name. He would do a lot for them. I really like Herb Jones, and it would give them an additional length, size, athletic ability on the wing to guard anybody. I think they could probably use a little bit because they did.
Derrick Jones Jr. last year. Remember, that was his role defensively.
Now you got Clay, who still competes defensively, but is nowhere near the defensive presence that he used to be when he was an all-league caliber defender. So you've lost a little there. You don't have Derrick Jones anymore. This would be something that could potentially fill that. With any trade proposition, it's always what do you have to give up. So these are tough hypotheticals without knowing what it would cost them.
Yeah, he's just such a good player. They have some depth. I mean, one of the things about Dallas, they have last night, as we saw, they have some depth. You keep getting good performances from Omax. Maybe he's a guy that they could look at, and New Orleans is going to probably be tearing it down, starting over with something. So you think young players there, but Herb Jones is so good, man. He's so impactful. And when he gets on a great team like that, I think he's going to shine in the playoffs. All right, what else we got, James? Taylor Klein says, Adam and Tim, thanks for another great show. Appreciate the work as always. Let's get Legs back in the DNVR studio. We're working on it, man. We're working on it. You got to.
Yeah, I haven't got my game schedule for the after basically Christmas, so that should be coming out pretty soon. I would imagine there will be another trip to Denver, so we'll definitely make that happen.
And maybe some trips around the country too. I mean, you guys got to help us grow the show to get to the point, but I would love to, by the playoffs, and especially as we get to the finals, be able to do some shows locally as we're covering these games a little bit more closely. Again, hopefully that's in Denver, but I'm not holding my breath right now. What else we got?
Oh, that's all.
Is that it? That's all. All right. Hit that outro music then, James. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. 2 shows down, 2 more to go this week. We got a great show for you lined up tomorrow and Thursday. Tonight is not a cup night. It's a general NBA night, so we should have a whole slate of games to break down for you tomorrow. If you're enjoying it, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You always get the notification when we go live, so you can check it out. Hit that like button for us on the way out. We'll see you tomorrow.
All silly like the mayor.